Welcome to the Inspiration North podcast, inspiring stories from inspirational people and how they found their passion, their true north. I'm James Eves.
And I'm Michelle Minikin, and this is the Inspiration North podcast.
Today's episode, Make a Career Doing Something You Enjoy with John Ryder. We talk about starting a business that is full of purpose, how much he loves solving problems, and how the hardest part of building a company is practicing what you preach.
John Ryder founded Hive HR in 2016, creating HR technology to challenge the traditional corporate approach to employee surveys and employee engagement. Product and service design has always been John's forte. A design marketing graduate, John spent over a decade working in digital marketing before landing the role as head of innovation at Teesside-based eCommerce firm VisualSoft, where Hive was first conceived. John's true passions lie in innovation, technology, and organisational culture.
So we're in Hive HQ today in Newcastle, and why don't we kick off, John, with our classic question of, did you know what you wanted to be when you grew up?
I think that it's a funny one, that, because at the time I would say no, but then I've seen what I wrote in my national curriculum. Remember that?
You filled it in, I didn't. Mine's still blank.
Remember that
Yep.
maroon folder with your
Yes.
swimming badges and your GCSE results in? And I wasn't far off.
Really?
Yeah. When I was at school, it's weird because the teachers back then, and they might do this now, they're almost like kind of sort of, you should do this, to sort of like nudge you. So there might be a bit of causation, but I was really good creatively. So I got A level art and design, A star in GCSE art, and most people would have went on to maybe go to art college. Art college was 16 mile away, I think, in Hartlepool. A bus journey every day. I didn't fancy that. But also I wasn't that interested in it, even though I was really good at it. What I actually liked doing was like solving problems. That's how I liked to be creative, rather than kind of drawing things and stuff like that. When I was at school, people were kind of trying to push me and nudge me into one direction, but I just wasn't interested in it. But in my national curriculum, the thing that I wrote was, I think it said something like, I want to do something to do with computers and something to do with graphics. So, okay, computers bit, I guess that's ticked off. I didn't really know or understand marketing at school, but that's I don't know. I think that I was maybe closer to than some people in terms of knowing what they wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I did my A levels. You know, I took a year out between college and going to university. University, like, I still didn't know what I wanted to do, but the degree I took, I was like, yeah, that sounds brilliant.
Okay, what did you do?
So I studied design marketing at Teesside University, and it does not do it, like, it's not what it says on the tin at all. It's kind of like, well, what's that? So it was kind of split up into market research, then product or service design and development, then go to market strategy.
Can we do this? It sounds really
like
interesting.
a bit of marketing as well. So it sort of felt that there was a lot of idea generation and market research, and then how you'd market it, and a lot of presentations. It was really sort of practical, as well as there was no oh God, I don't even know I forgot what they're called, because we didn't have one. What those big, huge, it's like a crazy long essay that you've got to write at the end of your degree, a dissertation. There was no dissertation.
Horrible.
That really attracted me as well. They pulled a fast one though in our second year. They decided that there was going to be a dissertation. In our first year, it was kind of like we'd already started, and then they said there's going to be a dissertation. Now, I wasn't even sure how they could get away with that, but they did. So that I loved that. Like, it was brilliant, that course. It felt like sometimes it felt like you were in an episode of The Apprentice, but without the sort of, the
idiots.
Yeah. Or maybe I was the idiot. And So yeah, I really loved that. When I left university, I fell into the job that I then did for a number of years. So for a good 15, 16 years, I was working in digital marketing. So we're talking about, I got into that in the early noughties, very early noughties.
Yeah.
So it was an exciting place to be.
It's like websites were barely useful then, weren't they? It's kind of
Yeah,
very
they
early.
were, yeah. So we did a lot of work back then for bookmakers. So one of my customers, I was working for an agency in Sunderland called Exist, and our biggest customer at the time was Bet365, and they're massive now, right? But back then they were only just starting out themselves.
Yeah.
But so I was like 21, 22-year-old, travelling down to Stoke every couple of weeks. The account manager at this agency for Bet365, I learned tons, talk about being thrown in at the deep end. And I did, did enjoy digital marketing, but it still wasn't too, it was only related to some or part of what I learned at university. And in fact, at university, they don't teach, or they didn't teach digital marketing back then. It was all like, the 4 Ps and things like that.
Yeah.
How I got into here, well, I was approached by VisualSoft. They were setting up, I knew someone who worked there.
Yeah.
And they were setting up something that they called the Innovation Lab. And they wanted basically someone to run it, someone to think up ideas, build those things, get them out into the marketplace, and then hopefully scale those things as businesses in their own right. And I was just like, oh yes, well that's what I want to do. That's kind of what I enjoyed doing at university, right? So I did, before I started there, I did go back into training a little bit because things have moved on, obviously, 15, 16 years later, lean,
Yes.
product development, etc. But that's how I ended up here, basically. I was working on 2 things at the time, 2 projects. One was, it was a project called Price Agent, and basically what it did is it was a tool that would help retailers to monitor the prices of the same products that they sold but on their competitors' websites, so that it could influence their own pricing strategy and
Handy.
just nudging prices here and there based on that. And we felt that we would be able to sell that in the VisualSoft's customer base, because they've got at the time I think it was 1,100 retail customers, something like that. But then the thing that Hive was the other project, and that was the project that I was most interested in, because it was one, it was full of purpose. 2, it's timing. I just felt like this is something that could lift off. I felt that the timing was right, and it was so we raised money and sort of split Hive off and out of the Innovation Lab, and here I am today, sort of 4 years later. Yeah. So did I know what I wanted to do? I didn't know I wanted to be the CEO of a scale-up company, no. No, who does? I mean, it wasn't even a scale-up. It
wasn't even a thing, was it?
Small business, you mean? Yeah.
But I guess you start with a good idea, keep developing it, and as that continues to get a bit of traction, you need a few more people to help with development, with promoting it, because how do you go from sort of the great idea to here we are sat in an office with, about 50 people?
I always think that this in itself is a strength, perhaps, but I'm okay at quite a lot of things. So initially, I was doing the stuff that I'd done at university in terms of research the market, who does what out there, the competition, etc. But I remember in the early days, designing the logo, doing the UX design for the actual platform itself, speccing up the platform and all of its features, and probably doing a really bad job of it all, but enough to be able to get a minimum viable product off the ground. I couldn't code, couldn't develop or anything like that. But in terms of, understanding what needed to go into the product and how to market it and how to sell it. These were things that I could do reasonably okay. Whereas fast forward, like I've wore so many hats over the last 4 or 5 years, right? So if we'd have been sat in this room sort of 18 months ago, I would be doing information security stuff. I would be doing finance stuff, as well as sort of people and culture stuff, as well as communicating with the board and you know just all that stuff. Now it's kind of like slowly but surely all of these plates that you're sort of spinning to a moderate level. You start being able to hand them off. So I think the first hires were, you know, you've got to have people that be able to build your ideas, so it was engineers. The next hire was sales, because while I was able to sort of, we've still got customers today. There was a customer in the other day, and I was like, oh, brilliant! Like I sold Hive to those guys. That's brilliant. So, but that was one of the other the next hire to make. Like sales is like real. You know, you've got to do a good job of it. You've got to just focus on that. So that needed to be someone come in. But then I was the person that was kind of doing all of the customer success, so launching and account managing, and then people. So slowly but surely, I just, you know, you start kind of getting these plates dished out, I guess.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Giving plates to other people to spin and juggle.
Well, that's where the investment comes in, right? You've got otherwise it's like it's really like organic growth must be extra. Like it's difficult when you've got investment and capital to then go, right, we're gonna hire all these people to do these jobs. Like when you're organically growing, it's like real chicken and egg stuff. So we've done a bit of that as well. Like in between our first round and the second round, it was literally kind of like, you know, we're at this level now. Like, what's the next hire that we need to make? What's the next hire? What's going to have the biggest impact? And so I've kind of experienced organic growth while at Hive, but otherwise, the headcount growth's all come from investment raising capital, basically.
Okay, so do you want to maybe tell our listeners a little bit more about Hive, its purpose, and why it exists, I suppose, why it was needed?
Like, I got interested in the whole topic of employee engagement in a previous job. So in a digital marketing agency, we would typically hire people that were it was maybe their second job outside of university, maybe it's the first, but they'd come in and over the course of maybe 3 or 4 years, they'd learn their trade, they'd learn their craft, and of course in an agency setting, that's your IP. Like your people are literally your IP. That's what you're selling as a company, and it felt like a big blow when anybody left, because you literally have to replace that person by bringing someone else in and spending that time to train them more. It wasn't easy necessarily to hire experienced people to come in. Right. So I started to get interested in what it really meant to, or how an organisation properly goes around creating an environment where employees are engaged. I mean, I didn't even know the word engaged then. I didn't even know that was a thing. That's how I became really interested in it. I think back then I was real terrible. I was a manager that was absolutely not providing an environment where I think people would have felt like this is engaging, which was interesting.
Yeah, you learn by your mistakes, don't you?
Yeah. But that's how I became interested in it. So when I joined the innovation lab at VisualSoft, they'd just gone through a management buyout, and they'd ran this huge survey internally. To try and figure where they were culturally and try and understand engagement levels, and it kind of, I thought that this doesn't make sense to me. Like, why would you only get feedback from your workforce annually, or they'd never done it before? Like, this just didn't make sense. This is kind of how I was thinking at the time. And then I did a bit of research into that. Yes, there were platforms out there at the time that were they were promoting the fact that organisations should be listening to employees on an ongoing basis.
Yes.
Which I thought made perfect sense, and there were thought leaders in the marketplace talking about that, and I thought, this sounds brilliant, because this is something that not only am I interested in, but I always felt that whatever company I set up, I wanted to create somewhere where the environment was really, really engaging, and the culture was really, really, really good for employees, that the experience was really good. So I thought, well, this is an opportunity not only to create a business where there's a lot of purpose, because we're literally helping other organisations to create better working environments, but it's also an opportunity to kind of practice what we preach as well, eat our own dog food, etc., etc. That's been a lot tougher than I thought, that bit, actually. Like, we're like a builder's house, you know. You have to work so hard at engagement, and I think that when you're a scale up or a startup, it's a super engaging environment to be in anyway. But
it's fun, exciting, fast
paced. Yeah, everybody's getting loads of learning and development experience just by being around and turning up every day. It's literally like that. But I think we went from about 13 people up to something like 27 people within the space of about 3 or 4 months. Like, that's when it all starts creaking. Then, and we're hiring a director of people and culture now, because we literally are kind of like, this needs some someone needs to manage that plate that's spinning, and that I'm not spinning as well as somebody that's just focused on that is. So Hive started because it was something I was interested in. I saw an opportunity from a business point of view. I saw an opportunity to get involved in something that could be quite meaningful and purposeful as well, in a nutshell.
It's good. What I like is there's a nice combination of, there's a technology aspect with a platform, but then it's working with something a bit more intangible, which is culture. It's what's the general feel within a corporate environment. I like that idea of marrying the two, which I think typically companies in general, or companies where I've worked, haven't necessarily been particularly good at, but now it's kind of feels like there's almost a movement in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, we have internally here at Hive, there's like a different use case than what some of our bigger customers in the way that they use it. I don't have very high emotional intelligence, so I can't sort of pick up on vibes. I just don't notice it. What Hive gives me as a leader within Hive is that it kind of makes things that are otherwise intangible to me. It literally gives me the tools to be able to see tangibly what the problems are, and then I can literally list those problems up and kind of think, well, how do we prioritize these problems? What sort of controls do we need to put in place to mitigate them? So I like seeing things tangibly and being able to fix them. People are complicated.
Yes.
It helps to kind of draw those complications out in a way. So I like that about it.
It's something to measure, and then you can do something with the measurement.
Well, I always say my favorite thing is if you can't measure, you can't manage what you can't measure.
That's right.
So, if it's like, I hate it when people go, "Oh, you're not a cultural fit." So what is the culture? It's like, we don't know. It's just a feeling. So, you can't really reject a candidate based on cultural fit if you don't actually know what the bloody culture is. Bonkers.
Very true. Very fair point. I mean, we've done. I think we've always done a good job of figuring out whether someone's a good cultural fit for us during the interview process, but it wasn't very. That process wasn't very structured. Now it is. We literally kind of like, okay, these are our values. Like, what questions can we ask to see how someone would be a good fit for those specific values? Because otherwise, it's too subjective, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
I've been in interviews here where at the end of the process, would be people on the pad like, oh no, I don't think they're a good cultural fit, and it'd be like, really?
Why?
Like, based on what? Like, it's not. There was a point in Hive's history where like everybody here tended to be like very sort of outgoing and amiable, and it was almost, I think the line I used after an interview was, look, we're not hiring for 18 to 30s here, like is this candidate matching up against these values, although they're quite quiet and reserved? Yes, they do. That's what we're looking for, not someone who's just like a really good laugh.
Yeah, it's like, it's not for somebody to get the pub with, it's somebody to add value and grow the business alongside.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Excellent.
Because often that's the case, isn't it? You talk about the two classic decision-making elements in a recruitment process is the CV, which I can pay someone to write that to make me look like a rock star, and an interview. I know I'm probably going to be asked these 5-6 questions that everyone asks, and I can prepare for those and parrot an answer.
And extroverts do better.
Yeah.
Generally interviews, so.
Yeah. I mean, the hardest people to hire are salespeople because they're all so good in interviews.
But full of sometimes, you know what.
Yeah. I used to read more into the cover and letter than the CV, because I used to feel as though the like CVs, they're kind of like the standardized, right?
Yeah. You're supposed to tailor them, but people don't.
Yeah. Whereas cover and letter, somebody can get their personality across like massively. It's an opportunity to do that. But now my thinking on that now is that that's flawed anyway, because if it suggests that if someone isn't that good at articulating themselves in a long format, in a long copy format, like does that mean they're not good at doing the job? Yeah, maybe if they're a copywriter or they're applying for a copywriter role, but an engineer, no. So we've changed our recruitment process slightly now, so that it's form based. It's kind of like fill in this form. These are the questions we'd like you to answer. When we don't, for many roles, it doesn't matter if you can't articulate yourself fantastically well. They're the answers to the things that we need to know whether we want to take it to the next stage or not. So I think I'm a lot more comfortable with, and I think it's a lot more well thought out than just, I can't be bothered with CVs, but what I'm going to look at is your covering letter, and then if I'm impressed with that, I'll look at your CV. It doesn't work there no more.
Yeah, so having the right sort of values that fit so much better than I will say that if you can give people experience, you can give people qualifications, you can't change their values. So if you get the raw ingredients, you can train them to do anything you need them to do.
100%. You got to get the balance. I think that if there's two candidates and one is technically better but is a poorer culture fit, go for the culture fit every time. That's what we've done here. Yeah. That's happened on a fair few occasions. But you need to be able to, under scrutiny, and when you're providing feedback to those candidates, you need to be able to say that you've got the right questions. It can't be just a feeling and be subjective. No. Yeah, so we've got like a point scoring system. Yep. It's fairly robust now in terms of how we, figure out whether someone's a good cultural fit or not.
I think the world of technology is changing at such a rapid pace. They need to be able to learn as well. So if you hire somebody who's going to be good at a certain Java or whatever now, is that what you're going to be using in the future? Is that ability to learn, pick stuff up, be interested, want to learn? Is that potential?
Growth mindset. Yeah. So one of the questions that we ask to try and understand whether someone's got a good growth mindset is, when was the last time you learned something new? And then we might poke around and say, okay, well, what was it? What did you learn from it? What went well with it? Then we kind of try and figure out whether they've got not just a growth mindset, but they're kind of able to critically analyze. So if it was like they tried a new piece of software or something to try and improve something, or they're looking for some sort of outcome, we're trying to look whether they're sort of data driven like that as well. Or how they go about learning and the experiences. So yeah, I think it's you're absolutely right. Everybody needs to be able to learn and learn quickly nowadays.
Yes,
I think.
they do.
Yeah.
Reminds me when I used to manage a sales team for the UK market for a PLC, and recruiters used to ask me what you're looking for in your ideal business development executive, and one of the things I'd say was they have the curiosity of a 5-year-old. Because I know then they're going to go and read the website of, this prospect, and they're going to, any new product we launch, they're going to go through all the specs so they'll understand it and can sell it a lot better. And it was that same sort of mindset. I want to learn, give me more, I'm a sponge. Why do we do this? Why does that work like that? Always asking questions like a 5-year-old. And I found it's usually quite a good indicator of someone who's, willing to learn, wanting to do more, go above and beyond. So it's something I've always looked for. It's quite
What sort of questions do you think, or you might know this, what questions did they ask to try and figure out someone's sort of propensity to be like that?
That's a good question. Probably links back in many ways to what you've said. What are they doing outside of work? Or what their hobbies are? They're learning a language, or they've started a martial art twice a week, or I guess something to show that striving, maybe to improve fitness, health, that they've just started to learn how to cook, or there's something which is not just a kind of clock in, clock out.
I'm fine, leave me alone.
I'm cool
don't interfere with me.
It's those elements. It's people wanting to maybe earn a bit more money, so maybe on the weekend they're doing something else. Little side hustle. I don't know specifically questions they might ask, but that's kind of what I would ask them for.
What do you do at the weekends? Sit in my pajamas watching Netflix. Maybe not learning new stuff, or absolutely exhausted. One of the two.
I remember we once had this question in, and we jettisoned it straight away after this round of interviews. But it was one of these where we'd nicked it off somebody, we're like, oh yeah, that might help us understand somebody's critical thinking. It was something like, we asked the candidates, so this is like face-to-face interviews, we asked the candidates on the spot to kind of like, look, we just want to see you working here, but how many cups of coffee you drank in Newcastle every single day? And I mean, there's maybe it's a process I'd go through in my head, but I was like, now I'm like, after this round of interviews, we're like, well, what are we doing? Why are we even asking that?
It's a Google question.
It is.
It's a bit pointless.
It's like that's your classic management consultant. How many golf balls could you fit into a 747? The answer's irrelevant, but it's your kind of thinking process, isn't it? Yeah,
but the funniest response was hilarious. Actually, it was the candidate's response was, well, we're gonna ring up every supermarket and every vendor of coffee that morning and find out how much coffee they'd sold. So in supermarkets, obviously they sell ground coffee and whatnot, but someone's not going to drink it all in a
day.
No. So it was flawed. It was flawed.
You'd be buzzing, wouldn't you?
I think they asked how big is the budget. They were talking about satellite surveillance and stuff. It was crazy.
It's literally think how many cups of coffee you have a day. Think how many adults similar to you. Take out the tea drinkers, probably half, and then times it by the population. Surely
you've got the job.
Welcome to Hive.
But yeah, it's nonsense.
Yeah, satellite surveillance.
Look on everyone's Instagram, see how many cups of coffee that they're posting.
Exactly.
It's bonkers.
But Google do ask some crazy questions like that.
I think they've stopped. I think they did, and they realised that.
Yeah, and then by the time everybody else
started,
so Google realised, that's stupid. And then by the time it gets out, sort of 2 years later, everyone's like, oh, Google are doing it, so let's do that. And then they realise it was stupid as well.
I know companies are still doing it.
Yeah.
We'll not name them.
It was a long time ago we did that, can I just say?
No, it sounds perfectly fine now. So
not asking the other ones what type of item of furniture would you be, or which fruit would you choose? Which animal would you be?
They're kind of fun just to maybe throw one in there.
See how how can they deal? How do they deal with randomness and uncertainty?
Exactly.
Is it like if they just laugh at you, or they actually take it really seriously?
Something that we used to do, and I don't know why we don't do this anymore, but we provide a candidate with an A4 piece of paper that just had, look, this is who's interviewing you today. This is what we're going to be doing. You're here because we think you're amazing on paper or in whatever, and just kind of like get people settled in. Because interviews, like, you want to see the best in somebody, but they're kind of designed to create really, like, it's a nervous, like, people come in a bag of nerves, don't they? And it's like that's not helpful. So we want to try and make people as comfortable as possible. And we'd list up 3 questions that we thought, look, in the real world, you don't have to have the answer to everything on the spot. Here's some questions that you've got opportunity to have a really good think about, because then that way we thought, well, that'll allow us to see how they think when they're not as under much pressure. I don't know why we stopped doing that, actually. That's
might have to bring it back in.
Yeah, I think we should.
I suppose it's something I've often tried to do in interviews as a hiring manager. Is starting point is sometimes it's a bit like the podcast, isn't it? We get you get the person more relaxed in a state where it's like, okay, we've got over the initial nerves, got to know each other a little bit. Now I can see a bit more what they're like, their character in a kind of normal setting. And as you say, you get the answers which will give you a better indicator as to who have I got sat in front of me, and do I think they can do the job that we've advertised for.
I've not had an interview myself for, I reckon, 18 years, something like that. God, I can't imagine. It'd be like having to go back to dating. It'd be like, ooh,
Yeah,
don't want to do that again.
Swipe, whatever, which way.
But they are awful things to have to do as a candidate, aren't they? Like, no one turns up to an interview thinking, oh, I'm really looking forward to this.
No, I'm awful at being interviewed. I love interviewing. But even we went on BBC Radio Newcastle, and it's like the first time James was like, what is this? It's like, because I wasn't in control of the situation. I was just a bit of a nervous wreck. But yeah, I like being on the employer side of this. I hate interviews. Yuck.
We in the face-to-face interviews, we do a bit of a presentation at the beginning now as well, because one of the things that we found ourselves doing was, if we thought, even before we'd kind of like scored everyone up, if there was like clearly someone where, you're kind of like looking around at each other, body language, and it's like, yeah, this person's really good. It's the last candidate. This person's been the best. We'd find ourselves then like selling the company to them, where really now what we do is like, right, we're going to sell. They're in here now. So we've got 4 candidates that we're meeting face to face, a panel interview. Like, one of them's probably going to get the job. We're going to sell Hive to all of them, and the ones that don't get the job, we're still going to go away and go and tell their friends and things like that. But so I get nervous about selling Hive. You mentioned there, like, it's probably not you like interviewing people, though.
Oh, I love interviewing people. So I'm really nosy and curious, like a 5-year-old.
Yeah, it's a bit strange. I used to get a bit nervous. Not anymore. But I used to get quite nervous with interviews. Why? It's like that makes no sense, right?
No, if it's not your. It's obviously, I'm a chartered psychologist. I've been interviewing people from the age of sort of 20. It's been kind of drummed into us how we do it, and so I'm trained. I train other people how to do it. So that's my thing. Whereas your thing might be something different. And what drives me to distraction almost in organisations is, so I'm going to now give you a managerial job, and you're going to just know automatically how to appraise people, interview people, have difficult conversations with people about performance, and motivate and engage and encourage. That's quite a lot of organisations just expect now you're getting a wee bit more money to just know how to do that, and no training. So it's if you know how to do it. It's amazing. We did some interview skills training at a previous organisation I worked in, and even the legal stuff, the stuff that you can't ask Nobody knew. So it's like, oh, so are you planning on having any children anytime soon?
Wow.
You can't ask that question.
No.
So yeah, it's just when you give people the knowledge and the confidence to do it, then it's easier, I suppose.
Well, on that note, I've never had any training on how to conduct interviews, but even I knew that one.
Well, we did a little quiz before and after. It's like, can you ask these questions, yes or no? And we'd be like, Jesus, these people have been interviewed for 20 years.
Just asking for a friend, what are the others?
I've got it somewhere, I'll send you it. Questions you can't ask. I'm sure Google will be able to tell you questions you can't ask in an interview.
I think we've always done sort of recruitment and hiring and interviewing and stuff. I think we've always done a fairly decent job of that. One of our first hires, guy called Theo, he's on our sales team. He was from a recruitment background, so he was in the early days. He was brilliant at asking good quality questions and getting the best out of our interview process. But that had to scale. Obviously, you couldn't just I'm trying to sell here. I can't just be in every single interview. Yeah.
So moving on to the quickfire round, which we will eventually have a name for. Mark Zuckerberg has written you a cheque for £10 million. What would you do with it?
Ooh, I would cash that. What's it for?
You can spend it on whatever you want.
Okay.
No conditions.
Wow. If you were just giving that money, you'd have to give some of it to charity. Yeah, I wouldn't feel like I'd earned that. That wouldn't be, I couldn't just put it in the bank. I'd have to put that at some good use. Maybe just keep a tiny little amount. Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't just feel comfortable pocketing it and keeping it and sort of spending it though on myself.
So what kind of charities are there?
Oh, there's one called CMV Awareness, and CMV is something that pregnant women can pass on to their babies, and it's enough's known about it, but not many people know about it. I would give it to that because recently affected by that. So yeah,
excellent,
awesome.
Question number two.
And I wasn't supposed to ask a follow-up question, so sorry, James. If you could choose who you would sit next to on a 10-hour flight, who would it be and why?
Oh, do you know what it is as well? And I'm sure you'll cut this bit out, but I always think about when I'm watching people on the telly, I'm always like, oh, they could come to my dinner party. They're amazing. 10-hour flight. I'd sit next to Russell Brand. He could talk for 10 hours.
He'd be very, very entertaining.
Yeah.
Well, he's got so many layers, that guy, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He's got something to talk about in any topic.
Yeah, he's got some interesting views.
Yeah, really interesting.
Quite well informed as well.
Yeah.
More than your initial sort of impression of him. It's a good choice.
Would you be doing some talking as well, or would he be all the talking?
You wouldn't get a word in, would you?
No, you wouldn't. You'd be like his audience of one.
Yeah. I hadn't thought that.
Final question. So once you've hired your head of people in Hive, you decide to get a personal chef to cook lunch for the team every day. Who would you choose as your chef?
Oh, there's a guy in Darlington, and he runs a place called the Raby Hunt. It's unbelievable. I think he'd be a bit too expensive.
It's fine, you've got all the money in the world, you've got £10 million.
Oh yeah, that's what I'd spend it on.
That would pay the chef budget.
Yeah, that would be good, wouldn't it? Yeah. He's so good, I don't know his name, but it's the Raby Hunt guy, right?
Okay.
Cool, we'll have to track him down.
We'll tag him in, when we launch it.
Okie-dokie. So we've finished the quickfire round, so thank you ever so much for participating in a bit of silliness. So if we could put you in a time machine and you could go back to your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give him?
I would be saying just pick stuff and do stuff at university, at college. Just focus on things that you enjoy, because if you enjoy doing something, you can become good at it. If you become good at it, then that can be something that you can probably turn into a career or a job. Just focus on things that you enjoy. Don't worry about what that might eventually become. It'll figure itself out. That's what I'd be saying.
Yeah, it's good advice.
Yep, absolutely.
Very enjoyable chat. If our listeners are interested in finding out more about Hive, about your good self, what's the best way to find you?
The website is www.hive.hr. Some fantastic content on there, obviously. My email address, john.ryder with a Y at hive.hr. And on LinkedIn as well. I've got my own name on LinkedIn, like John Ryder is the, early adopter, so that's good. Yeah.
One of these people that are actually companies as well.
Yeah, it's like linkedin.com/John Ryder, I think, something like that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
We'll track it down and we'll put it in the show notes so people can just click on it and track you down.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Well,
Great stuff. Enjoyed it.
Thank you ever so much for allowing us to come into your offices and interrogate you for a couple of hours. Well, feels like it.
Very welcome. My first podcast interview. So, yeah, thanks very much.
No worries.
Great, thanks.
Thanks everyone for listening. Check out all the show notes at inspirationnorth.com. Join us again for the next episode when we'll be chatting to another inspirational person. If you like this, subscribe and tell your friends. If you didn't like this, subscribe anyway.
And tell everybody.